All right, let's roll. Call the meeting to order at 6:02. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Any announcements, Marcy?
I don't have any announcements, but just want to remind everyone that we're being live streamed, so if we could make sure to turn the mic on when we speak.
Excellent. Do we have a motion to approve the December 5th meeting minutes? Melanie made the motion.
I'll second.
Martin second. Any discussion?
I will point out that Judson's name is spelled wrong.
Yes, I did notice that.
I had one revision, and I only pointed out just because I think it needs for clarity purposes. Under section 8D, policy, it says A, policy request. And there's a discussion of looking for policy examples of schools. I just thought we had to add from other districts.
Okay, can you say again where that is, Bryce?
Section, actually it's section 9. No, I'm sorry. I'm looking at something else.
Okay.
8DA, about middle of it, it says the words more policy examples, and just add from other districts.
Okay.
There's some other minor stuff, but they don't change the content. Anyone else? Still want to make the motion with that revision, Melanie?
Yes, please.
And you want to second it? And sounds good. Hearing nothing, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Moving right along. Special presentations, poetry out loud.
So I would like to have Matt actually introduce Joy and her students. You can turn that on. Ooh, you're electric.
I'm sorry. All right. Well, how? So one of the things that when this high school was founded in 1997, one of the founding principles of the school was interdisciplinary learning. Joy Dustin, who teaches English at the high school, is also the department facilitator for the English department. And in the month of November, Joy led an effort to have poetry incorporated throughout the school in a number of different disciplines. So Joy's going to talk a little bit about that work, as well as Poetry Out Loud, which is a competition that Joy organizes every year. And then we have a couple incredible kids who are going to present to you.
I'm excited. Thanks, Matt. You kind of gave away some of my talk here. So I wanted to start tonight making a little bit of a confession, and that is that oftentimes I come into the school building to teach English, and in the midst of my excitement for sharing my passion for writing and for reading with my students, I forget that there are actually people in the world that like math. And then I remember that there are actually people in the building that like to teach math. And the reason for that, I think, and it's not uncommon, right? I think it's not just me, but a lot of teachers, especially at the high school level, is that we get into this mode of teaching our own discipline and forget that we're in a building full of people that are teaching just like us, just a wall's width away, but just happen to be teaching a completely different subject. And the reason that I love Bow High School, I've been teaching here for 26 years, is that we work so hard to create interdisciplinary experiences for our students. Because the world does not offer experiences and challenges based on subject matter. We're thrown things all at once, and we have to deal with those things using our English skills and our math skills and our science skills. And Bow, I have always loved about Bow is that always works hard to give our kids experiences that show that kind of integration so that they graduate with those skills. We have America and the World, we have an American Dream, where our kids learn that history can often result in literature, but that literature can often also push forward history. So those kinds of experiences are what we really like to offer for our kids and what I'm really proud that our high school offers to them. This year, my department sat down and decided that it would be neat to try to put together a program that would allow teachers from all different disciplines to experiment with some English. And in this case, we decided on poetry because we look at poetry as a means of writing that's short and free of the confines of essay writing, but also allows for expression and exploration of history and of our own selves. And so last year, we actually came up with a passport program where we gave every high school student a passport and we gave every high school teacher a stamp. And every time a student in a classroom shared a poem they liked with their classmates or even just with their teacher, or every time that the teacher shared a poem with their class, the student received a stamp on their passport. And if the student filled their passport, they were able to put it in a box and we had a drawing of a raffle the following month. And what was really cool was walking around the school and hearing math teachers and science teachers sharing poems with their students and also seeing students share poems with each other. And we had a few people finish that passport, a handful of them. So we felt like that was pretty decent. But this year, we thought, like, let's up it a little bit and see if we can get even more people to participate in this kind of a program. So this year, the English department put together handouts, and every Sunday night, right before the week started, that handout was sent to all teachers in the building. And the handout defined a type of poem, like, let's say, haiku, and that it also gave them some instructions as to how they might use haiku in the classroom. And we challenged all of our teachers in the building to try this out maybe once, because there were 4 opportunities to do so throughout the month. And if they did, they could send their poem to me, and I'd enter their class into a raffle that we would pull at the following month. And so again, it was kind of neat to walk around the building in the month of November and hear all sorts of classroom scurrying as teachers led their students in these kinds of activities. And would you believe, at the end of the month, 40 different classes had sent me poems from all different classes. I got a poem about retirement from our finance class. The Links program kids worked together to put together a poem. I got an incredible poem from the filmmaking class that Sam Dixon runs. They had created a found poem by cutting small pieces of many different films and putting them together to make one solid poem. So we felt like it was a really successful run. We've really enjoyed reinforcing the importance of interdisciplinary learning in the high school. It also kind of helped us roll into December, and in December, we hold our Poetry Out Loud competition here at Bow High School. In case you don't know, Poetry Out Loud started in 2005, and its first competition ran in 2006. It's sponsored by the National Endowment for the Arts, the Poetry Foundation, and also state and jurisdictional arts agencies. In New Hampshire, that's the New Hampshire State Council on the Arts. It's been running officially since 2006, and Bow High School has been participating since 2006. 4.5 million students across the nation have participated in Poetry Out Loud since it began. And all 50 states currently participate every year in this program, including, let's see if I can get my geography skills right here, American Samoa, the US Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, Guam, and Washington, D.C. It begins in the classroom, so we have teachers that offer classroom competitions where every student picks their own poem, they own that part of it, and then they learn that poem, and then they present that poem to their classmates in front of the class. They have to memorize that poem. And then a champion from each classroom competition is chosen and is sent to state competitions, and then classroom competition winners are sent to the school competition, and then school competition winners are sent to the state competitions. In New Hampshire, we have regional competitions first, and then when regional winners are chosen, they're sent to a state competition that, this is pretty cool, happens at the State House in New Hampshire in the chambers, and then those winners are sent to Washington, D.C. It's an all-expense paid trip to participate in the national competition. Fun fact, in 2006, Teal Van Dyke, Bow High School student, won the state competition for Poetry Out Loud. It was our first year running the program in the nation, and went on to participate in Washington, D.C., and placed second in the nation for Poetry Out Loud. And then fast forward to 2020, Bow High School student Rachel Budd was the winner of the state competition. She and I flew to Washington, D.C., and though she didn't place in that competition, she represented Bow with pride and grace, for sure. This year, we have 250 students in the building who participated in Poetry Out Loud in classroom competitions, and 12 of those students went on to participate in our school competition. Our school competition is my, by far, favorite all-school assembly of the year. We are really lucky that Sean McDonald from Channel 9 comes down every year to MC our event, and we also have really wonderful judges that give their time pro bono to judge our event. Peter Ramsey is the CEO of the Palace Theatre in Manchester, and he's one of our judges. And Don Kimball has been our judge since we began in 2006. He's the former president of the Poetry Foundation. So we've been very fortunate to have those kinds of people participate. We also have the Bow High School Music Department who plays music in between our poetry contestants so that all of our students get to witness the talents of our Bow High Bow High School Music Department. And then my favorite part is when our students get up in front of their peers and present these poems that they've worked so hard to learn, have the courage to do that, and do it with such expression that it really takes my breath away every year. And every year I think that kids can't get better at it, and then every year they amaze me with what they do. So I'd like to formally invite all of you to join us next year to our Poetry Out Loud competition. It always occurs in December, and I will promise to make sure to send out an invitation to you so that you can witness all of this wonderful stuff that I'm talking about. But in the meantime, I'm really lucky to present two of our winners from this year's competition, Jaden Glace and Anne-Marie Fay. They're going to share their winning poems with you this evening. So thank you so much for your time and letting me share, and I'm going to turn it over to Anne-Marie.
Thank you. You're welcome. The Kiss by Robert Graves. Are you shaken? Are you stirred? By a whisper of love, spellbound to a word? Does time cease to move, till her calm gray eye expands to a sky, and the clouds of her hair, like storms, go by? Then the lips that you have kissed turn to frost and fire, and a white steaming mist obscures desire. So back to their birth, fade water, air, earth, and the first power moves over void and dearth. Is that love? No, but death. A passion, a shout, the deep in breath, the breath roaring out. And once that is flown, you must lie alone, without hope, without life, poor flesh, sad bone. And now Jaden Glace.
A January Dandelion by George Marion McClellan. All Nashville is a chill, and everywhere, like desert sand when the winds blow, there's each moment, sifted through the air, a powdered blast of January snow. Oh, thoughtless dandelion, to be misled by a few warm days to leave thy natural bed. Was folly growth and blooming over soon? And yet, thou blasted yellow-coated gem, full many a heart has but a common boon, with thee, now freezing on thy slender stem. When the heart has bloomed by the touch of love's warm breath, then left, and chilling snow is sifted in, it still may beat, but there is blast and death to all that blooming life that might have been.
Joey, before you go, can I ask a couple of questions?
Yes, please do.
First of all, unbelievable. Again, when I was in high school, I'd be scared to death to do what you guys just did in front of 25 adults. Like, it's incredible. Do they still have forensics? Do you know what that word, have you ever heard of that?
Forensics? Yeah, forensics, like
Is
the
that
class.
true? Yeah, I remember I did Casey at Bat for forensic, like a similar competition
okay, sure.
in middle school myself. But
Yeah.
side note. Anyway, how do you judge it? I mean, 50,000 feet, like what is it the content? Like, how does it
So
work?
the National Endowments for the Arts came up with a rubric, and it's pretty much kind of parsed out into understanding of content, expression, facial and vocal, clarity, and then, the complication of the essay, the poem, whether it's really long or really short, that kind of thing, yeah. And we do actually have Anne-Marie, for instance, our champion isn't here tonight. Anne-Marie was our first runner-up, and she'll go to the state competition, hopefully, and be she'll speak her poem, but not for judging, to make sure that we have equilibrium across the board when it comes to judging. So they have that in place too, to just ensure that our judges are using the rubric the same way. So yeah, they put as much in place as possible to keep it as fair as they can. Yeah.
Interesting.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Have you ever, were you ever able to get like a New Hampshire Poet Laureate to come in? And
Yep. So the closest we've come, really, and we're so lucky, is Dawn Kimball, who has published in just so many books on poetry and was the president of the Poetry Foundation. Poet laureates are a little bit harder to get, but the bigger issue is that the New Hampshire State Council for the Arts is one of the overseeing agencies for Poetry Out Loud. So typically they ask that we don't ask those poet laureates to judge, because they often will visit schools and do work with our poets before Poetry Out Loud, and then there could be some potential bias, yeah, so.
have we gotten them to come here and work with our students?
We have, yeah. So it's free. They offer that for free, the New Hampshire State Council for the Arts, especially during Poetry Out Loud season. And multiple times we've had poets come in and work with America in the World, American Dream, and then Mike McKylan teaches a poet, or has been teaching a poetry class, and he had somebody come in and work with his kids as well. Yeah.
And then, sorry, one more question. I'm
Yeah,
sorry. I
that's
just
fine.
think that this is so great. Have you guys ever thought of doing like a poetry slam?
I think that Mike did a poetry slam before with his poetry class, for sure, and we've had open mic nights before as well. Yeah, so we've had those in the building before. But typically poetry slams often find students writing their own poems and coming and delivering them, and Poetry Out Loud requires that students choose poems from a bank. So then that's a bit of an issue, because most of the time kids show up wanting to give their own poems. So, but we have had poetry slams here before. Yeah. Sure. Anything else?
I don't think so. Thanks again.
Thank
Don't
you.
feel like you have to stay, ladies. Moving right along. Public comment. Anyone with any public comment? We have a much bigger crowd than we usually do here today. We have about 8 people. No? Okay.
Okay, sorry about that. I thought other people were stepping up to the mic. I'm Sue Marcotte Jenkins. I live at 11 Hope Lane. I'm the person, as the board members probably remember, that requested that the board begin recording all of your public meetings. I asked that at last month's meeting, and I also asked, when you discuss it, if you could share some budget information about this. There are at least a couple of us who would like to make some comments about that, but I see it's later in the agenda tonight, and I'm wondering, so I don't mean to tell you how to run your meeting, but so the meeting isn't choppy. Could we either postpone our comments until it comes up in your agenda, or could you move the topic up in your agenda?
Since normally, frankly, very few people come to our meeting, and even 3 or 4 people is more than normal, then yes, let's just do it now. Why don't we'll move up our topic. If you have people here who want to talk about it, let's talk about it now.
Okay, great. Well, I'll begin then. I won't repeat the comments I made last month. I did give probably a half a dozen reasons why I think it's in everybody's best interest to record your meetings and post them online. but I'll emphasize that the public has an interest in how you conduct our business, and it's really difficult for a lot of people to come at 6 o'clock on a Thursday night, and if your recordings were available online, it'd be far more convenient, and it would encourage citizen involvement, and I think better decision-making, because it would have in community engagement.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Mary Beth Walls. I live at 25 Stack Drive in Bow. And Sue asked me to come and testify tonight because she was at the Selectmen's meeting many years ago when I testified there, suggesting that they record their meetings. And I have a story to tell, based on my experience in public life, that she asked that I share with you. Many of you know that I was your state representative for 7 terms. And when I started in the legislature, I asked for and was placed on a committee called Children and Family Law. And at the time that happened, this is 20 years ago, the hot topic in the state was what people called angry dads. It was dads who thought that they weren't getting fair treatment by judges when they went through divorce and custody cases along the way. And so they started showing up in the legislature in significant numbers, and they were pretty aggressive and pretty outspoken, and then they started taping. Except when they recorded the meetings, initially there was not enough control. And they would go anywhere they wanted in the room. They would stand right behind you and read your notes over your shoulder. Sometimes if you put them in the back of the room, they had something called a directional mic that they could focus at you, and if you whispered to somebody next door to you, they could hear it. I mean, all the way around, it was awful. I was like, oh, I don't like this. I don't want to be recorded at all. I'm done with this kind of approach to things. So it kind of happened, and we got really careful, and they settled down, and it wasn't quite so often, but periodically they'd show up with this kind of stuff. And we tried to control some and said no directional mics. Who knows if they were listening to us or not. And then COVID happened. And then, as you know, everything went video with COVID. And so the legislature set it up so that there was a single camera in the back of a room that would record what was going on in that room. And the members of the legislature participated both from the room and remotely, depending on how safe they felt coming into the legislature at that point. And suddenly, it was a whole different thing of being recorded. Suddenly, you didn't have somebody zooming in on you, trying to eavesdrop over your shoulder, trying to listen to what you were whispering to somebody next to you. You didn't have some camera zooming in on you in case you were scratching your nose or whatever it was that you were doing that you really didn't want to zoom in on. And there was a change in the way the public interacted with us. Suddenly, they became far more engaged. And you could see online who was watching the meetings and who was in, the way it was set up. And so you couldn't be there. I mean, I suppose you could hide with somebody, but you couldn't be there anonymously. And it was really interesting to see how the whole thing changed and how much more people became engaged and became aware of what was going on. And so it was a good thing. And they got to see the good, they got to see the bad, they got to see the ugly, they got to see the way we work and the way laws are made. But they also got to see how diligent most legislators are and how hard they work and how interested they are and how committed they are and how prepared they are, quite frankly, when they come in. So I told this story to the selectmen, and initially they were very resistant to being recorded. There was an election and things changed, and eventually the selectmen did choose to be recorded. And it's really interesting to watch what's happened there because there has not been blowback, at least not on social media, and I don't think to the members because of the recording. In fact, I think quite the opposite has happened, as people seem more reassured that when they can listen and watch to what's going on in the board meetings, that nobody's trying to hide anything, nobody's trying to bamboozle them, all of a sudden they know what's going on, and they feel more confident in what the board is doing. So I'm here to say, I'm asking that you please record and broadcast and put online your meetings so that members don't have to watch at 6 o'clock on a Thursday, but, by 10 o'clock when the kids are in bed some night, if they want to tune them on, they can. And they can know what's going on. And based on my experience and based on what I've seen happening with the Board of Selectmen, I honestly think this is going to be to your advantage. That it'll take away a lot of the questions. I mean, we've all seen the hostility that sometimes can be projected your way, I believe unfairly. And I think when people can see what you're doing, it's going to be easier for them to understand what you're doing. And honestly, watching the court cases on school funding, depending on how they go, this could get worse. If the legislature just downshifts all this to the school boards, you guys are going to be between a rock and a hard spot when it comes to funding schools. So I would encourage you to do this now. And I want to finish by saying there's a saying in government that many of you probably heard that says sunlight is the best disinfectant. And what that really means is that transparency and openness eliminate misinterpretation. What they do is when you're open and people can see what's going on, they can see for themselves how things are being done, then you don't get somebody just making something up and putting it out there and saying, well, did you see the school board did X when you guys didn't do X at all? So I would encourage you to do this. You certainly have the equipment in here. I think the cost is pretty minimal, certainly based on what's going on over at the Board of Selectmen, who don't have the built-in equipment the way you guys do. And the legislature had to go out and get all new equipment, and it's not a big deal for them to run it either. So I would encourage you to do this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I'd like to make one more comment. Actually, it's a favor. I would really appreciate if you take our comments and our requests and really discuss them tonight. That's one of the reasons I asked that it be put on the agenda tonight, because I've seen sometimes you rightfully accept public comments, but you defer discussion about it. You'll say, you'll take it under advisement. And my hope is that you'll discuss it and that we'll understand from actually each of you where you stand on this by the end of the evening. Thank you.
Yeah, we are going to talk about it as soon as, probably after Judd, but yeah, we certainly will do that. I will let folks know that today we received a warrant petition to have this at the annual school meeting, so we can talk about all we want. This town's going to vote on it in a couple months, so we'll still talk about it, but it doesn't really make much difference what we do tonight. Go ahead.
I'll withhold comment till then. That's fine. That's good. So there's a warrant article for this at this point?
Yeah, we just got this today. Sorry, I think, here it is. Yeah, a petition.
Do you want me to?
Yeah, go ahead, Dwayne.
So,
Dwayne knows more about it than I do.
So the beginning of this week, on Monday, I was emailed a petitioned article that I've given to the board tonight to live stream board meetings, similar to what there was, I guess, a petitioned article at the town. I guess I probably should have paid more attention to that, but to live stream the select board and planning board meetings, and I think that passed, and that's happening. So there's 25 signatures. So whenever we get a citizen's petition, you have an obligation to send that to the supervisors of the checklist, have them certify that the people who have signed it are all registered voters, which has happened. So I got that today. So I gave a copy of that warrant article to the board. So what we've done is we have taken the language, sent that to legal counsel. I don't expect there to be any changes to it. It seems to be well-written to me. There's like one cross off that I fixed already. So we'll get input from them. We've already sent it to DRA. They don't really have opinions on non-monetary articles, but since it's on the full warrant, we sent it to them as well. So, and then we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about other stuff later.
What other stuff?
Okay, so
subject, or?
Nope. So we after the couple of times it's come up, we've actually kind of looked into cost for us. So right now, we definitely have the equipment because we're doing it now, but the equipment that we have now requires someone to run it manually, which is why we have Connor here. So if Connor comes to every meeting, the cost for us, set up, the meeting time after the fact, could be 3 or 4 hours. That's about $150, $200. Great. If we were going to just run it ourselves, so sometimes we weren't live streaming and we just had the microphones and we had an iPad device where we could just run the microphones, I could run them. If we wanted to do that, not have anybody in the booth, just hit the button and it starts live streaming, hit the button and it stops and it's recorded, we have some costs that we need to do that. We need a different camera, we need some controls that we have to link into stuff. That can be around probably $6,000, $8,000. That's a one-time cost, never have to do that again. We have all the cameras, obviously we just did a speaker upgrade, so we're in really good shape to do this.
But that's for this room.
That's for this room.
Right.
Oh, sorry, my watch went off. That's right, that's for this location. We wouldn't have a mobile recording something where we could go to like classrooms or, the conference room we meet in sometimes. Sometimes we meet at the other school buildings. So, if we did that, we'd really need to have school board meetings in this location to live stream. So thanks, that was good. Yep.
Anything else? Judd, can I encourage you to we're happy to hear your thoughts anyway, even if you say them in March, happy to hear them now.
Sure. So I guess I don't find it particularly onerous to come out to an event face-to-face with people at 6 o'clock on a Thursday. That is a very reasonable time to come out, I would say. It's not a midday time that everyone's working, or the majority of people are working, speaking in generalities here, of course. But so I don't know. I feel like that is a way to disincentivize engagement with the group, and that if you want to engage with the board, you come to the board meetings. I've enjoyed coming. I've been coming for quite a while now, and I encourage other people to come when they can. So I don't know. I've said it. I said it at a different town meeting or a different school board meeting. Don't stop getting on social media and start being social. Be face to face with people. Come out, see them, talk to them. Don't do it from your computer. I mean, I get the reasons behind the idea behind it, but come out and be social, be involved. And make a commitment to your community to be involved. And it's not easy for me. I have 4 kids. My wife is right now running around, going all over the place to sporting events as we speak. It can be done, and I would encourage you to do it instead of recording the meetings and allowing people to be disengaged. Those are my thoughts.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Have some situation where the meetings after they're taped will then be available online?
Yeah, it requests that the meetings be both live streamed and then recorded so that they can be viewed at a future date when convenient for residents, is how the language is.
Go for it. Honestly, this is one example. You got to go to the mic, I think, to be on recording. So,
my question is, how do you work in the costs, the projected costs, into the budget with a warrant article that's petitioned by the voters?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, the particular article, how it's written, is not raising any money to do that. So for us, we would have to either add it to the budget for next year, or because the effective date on this article is the 15th of March, we would have to, in my opinion, we'd have to pay for it like in March after the article passes. So and things like that happen. I'm not gonna, the way budgets run, I mean, we're putting a budget together right now that doesn't start until July, doesn't finish until June of 2026. So things that we think are going to happen change, costs go up, things happen, they don't, we save money here and there. So, that's just part of what we do in our office. We manage those kinds of ups and downs. So we'd have to, if we wanted to implement we don't need somebody and get that in, we'd have to find that money, in my opinion, in this year's budget.
Is $6,000 to $8,000, if that was the figure you gave for, a fixed cost, and it was the highest cost, is that pretty easily found?
Yeah, we would figure that out. Yeah, I mean that it's you don't want to say ease and not ease or whatever, but we would have to do that in the technology budget is where we would do that. So we'd have to work with Chris and folks and figure that out.
Thank you.
Can I just say one thing?
Do you mind waiting just
No.
to finish the public comment piece?
Okay.
Or are you responding?
No, well, I was going to respond to it.
Okay, go for it.
So, Jen, I've actually kind of been for this because when my kids were really little, my husband worked all hours, and I was home with a 2.5-year-old and twin newborns. And then they got older, but it was a lot. It was a lot to do by myself. And then I couldn't drag them out here. So I feel like you might want to be invested, and you might want to, and you're lucky. You have your wife, and she's taking care of the kids, and that's crazy too. But there's also some privilege in that, and some people don't have that. And I think it's important for us to consider everybody that's in our community and the people who can be here and can say things. And I think you definitely get way more out of it by being here and being involved, answering questions when parents have them, or I think it has a better feel. But if you can't do that, it's a lot easier to, put an earbud in and listen while you're making dinner and dealing with the kids. That's my opinion.
Any other public comment? No? Marcy, anything to add before the board talks?
No, I was
about it?
just kind of having a sidebar conversation with Dwayne, because there are some meetings that happen at the town offices that are not live streamed. And so I think I know that it's not feasible that every single meeting we have is going to be in this room. And so knowing that there are going to be times when we're not here, and that how that can somehow be incorporated into that petition warrant article.
Excellent. Melanie, anything further to add, or was your comments just directed towards what Judd said?
Just to what he was saying about just come out.
So feel free to add then, other comments. We're all going to talk about it right now.
Oh, no, you guys go first.
Oh, okay.
I'll talk about it. Sure, so I had a few questions, sorry, that's far away. Are there any other fees other than the equipment cost? Thinking things like storage fees, how long are the recording held?
So
is there the right word is not laws, but I know in federal government we have certain strict standards to how long something is kept.
So right now, it would be housed on our YouTube channel, and that is free right now. I mean, that obviously could change, but in terms of storage capacity and connecting with Connor, it shouldn't be an issue. I think we can determine how long we need to keep it. I mean, we keep my sense would be it would be the same amount of time that we would keep our minutes for.
Anything else? That's all. You have an opinion? You don't have to give it. I mean, feel free to.
I wasn't ready for an opinion. I see both sides of it. I guess my concern would be if something like this passes and doing it, if we have meetings in other places, that it's limiting us to have meetings here. And I think one of the first few meetings I did was at the elementary school to see the construction and those things. And I think that was really valuable to go to that school and to see those things as part of our board meeting. So that would be kind of, for me, the disadvantage if we always have to have the meetings here due to recordings. But I think if that piece of it is flexible, I think it's good to get the information there and be recorded.
Jenna?
A couple things. I think that we probably, if we decide to do this, or probably the warrant will pass and we'll have to do this either way, but we probably need to invest the 6,000 to 8,000 because Connor is not going to be here forever, and we don't know if there's going to be an IT employee that will come at 6 o'clock at night to work and do this, in the IT department. So I don't think we can rely on that. So I think we have to be self-sufficient in it, which is fine, but it's just something to think about, that when we think about cost, I think that's the cost. We can't think about $150 a meeting because that's not a given. And I would hate if, Connor couldn't be here, or we didn't have someone here, that we'd have to reschedule a whole meeting or cancel a whole meeting because we couldn't live stream it or record it. That would irritate me because I do move my whole schedule around to be here at 6 o'clock on Thursdays. I really am not opposed to it at all. I think it's fine. Part of why I think we've never done it is because we did it during COVID and a little bit after, and we had issues with the internet going in and out. That was like Google streaming, so it was a little different, but it got frustrating. It really bogged down our meetings. But then also, there wasn't participation. We could see how many viewers there were, and there weren't a lot. So we just didn't think there was interest in it. So it just never was an issue. We were like, well, no one really cares. Let's not push it or spend the money on it. It seems like now there is, and that's fine with me. If people want to watch and tune in and be more invested, I think that's great. It hasn't been, I've been on the board now 6 years, and that just has not been my experience when we have live stream stuff. Even the few meetings we've live streamed lately, it just hasn't been a lot of engagement. So I'm totally fine with it.
We can actually go back and look, or Connor can look at the analytics of it to see how many people have viewed it, what sections they viewed, how long they actually viewed. So that could be useful information.
But yeah, I'm assuming we're going to do this, and I'm totally fine with it. I think the more people you can try to get engaged, the better. I just think that's hard to do.
Yeah, I guess a few comments. I don't feel passionate about it one way or the other, to be honest. But I've been on the board about 8 years, and the policy has informally been of the board over those 8 years, and who knows before me, maybe before, but technology wasn't even in 8 years, it's advanced a lot. Anytime the board's ever been asked to record or live stream, we have, every single time, or at least tried to. And I guess my fundamental resting spot is, if it ain't broke, why fix it? If we're willing to do that for these few folks who say they can't make it, I'd be curious how many, Connor, can you tell how many people are watching right now? I mean, this was on the community page, this was on the Both Schools Matter tonight, like I bet it's, how many?
Yeah, we have 6 people watching right now with a total viewership of 21 viewers.
So we have a town of 8,000 people to spend $6,000 on equipment to do something that I don't feel is broken. We're willing to do it whenever we can. It seems like a lot of effort to help. And I get it. We don't want to leave anyone behind. Everybody wants an opportunity. I could certainly, I guess at this point, without it being, a mandate of some sort, I can make a more proactive effort, so we do live stream as opposed to asking people to ask us first. I could make more of an effort to do it out of the gate anyway. I have talked to our council about this, and he has a few interesting things to say. Our council represents a whole host of school districts. He says it's pretty uncommon for school boards to record and live stream. He says it's more common with towns and select boards, and most of the schools that do are the much bigger school districts. He says, and I don't fully understand this aspect, but he says we're the most informal board that he encounters. And I think what he means by that is this is supposed to be a school board meeting that the public is essentially watching. And instead, we kind of behave, it's really because of me, I think that's the way I run the meeting. We more or less behave like it's a public meeting. And so when people in the public want to chime in at any point, we kind of say, sure, go ahead. And I think, to me, there's been value in that, in being able to interact freely. He says we would have to change that. I don't understand that, so that's something I'll have to follow up on why we would need to be more formal. Marcy, you look like you know why?
I think the reason for that is because oftentimes when people hear and you're face-to-face, we're really quick to respond, or the board's quick to respond or to offer suggestions, and I think people become apprehensive to do that because once you're recorded, well, you said this, or you answered one way and really it was another. So I think there will definitely, again, I see both sides of this, but I think it will bring more formality to the meeting than we've had in the past.
Some of the other things he mentioned is if we have a formal policy,
if we make a mistake and there is a recording or there's something, he has suggested something like a FERPA, we violate some child's rights or something, then it would be, if we have a policy where we have to keep that recording out in public, now how are we going to rectify that? Whereas right now we have an informal policy where we record it, we put it on the internet but if we could just pull that back because we did some mistake like that, that's another area that would make it easier. I do say that, we've only had in my 8 years 2 issues that bring out the public besides the annual meeting. The COVID period, there was a period of time where folks were interested in what we're doing, and anything related to transgender seems to bring out people. And, we have recorded all those events, and I can tell you that, when we ask people to say their address and they stand up there and it goes on in the public domain, we've had people from out of state literally harass people that spoke at different meetings that they got because they were able to see that public viewing. How do you prevent it? I don't know, but I'm just saying it's a downside to it. And I do worry about really Jenna's point, which is, so if we have a formal policy and we have to do this, if the technology falters, I think we're likely going to have to cancel the meeting, and we have a hard enough time having a meeting to begin with. I just hate to have one more wrinkle with it. So, like I said, I really don't have a passionate view of it, but I just feel like we're trying to fix something that's not broken, and for those 6 people out there out of a town of 8,000, it seems like a lot of effort to me to try and do that and have this formal policy.
I will not be as verbose. I'm actually in favor of this, of streaming and recording our meetings, and I see, Judge, your point of view, but I don't think those points are mutually exclusive, right? You can still come here and you still have your social, but it does reach a larger audience. And even if the audience is only 5 people, 7 people, that's 7 people more than we reached before, right? So if we want to have more people here, if you want to get more support, I think that's what we'll have to do. I agree with that it will change the character of the meeting, and there are some kinks that will need to be worked out with technology and what we can do and what we can't do, but I think that's all solvable problems.
I guess, so I have a question. If we wanted to do a meeting somewhere else, I know that we had something called the OWL. So if we were in another, could that also function in that kind of capacity?
I don't think so. I would defer to Connor, who's already mic'd up.
Yeah, so the OWL camera kind of stinks for live streaming, but we do have technology already to do mobile streaming at any of our 4 buildings.
Oh.
And where would that be, Connor?
It's in my office. I'd have to go set up at every meeting that we do on the road.
Right. I guess that's our point, is that if for some reason we had to relocate to another building, it would require you being there and bringing the equipment there.
That's correct. Not just for the stream, but also for our audio and our production needs.
So the other question that I have then is, so if we, and you might understand this better, so if we let this warrant article take place, we have to do it just as they said.
There's no letting it take place.
No, I know. No, okay, I'm sorry. All right, yes. If it takes place, then it's exactly the way that it has to be. Whereas if we made a vote now that we were going to do that, could we then shift it so if there was the internet was down and we were here, we could still have our meeting, but is there a way so that we can make it so it's flexible if we just voted for it now and we started and we just did it?
You could amend, stand up at the meeting and amend.
That would be the way to do it. But the way that this is written, it will appear on the warrant except for any kind of grammatical or minor changes to it. But the content is how it's written. That will be on the warrant.
I do have a quick question too. Is that the $6,000 to $8,000 equipment that we can run ourselves? Is that portable, or is that fixed in this room with these cameras?
That's in this room.
Okay.
So even if we voted right now to say, let's do this, this is going to go before?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else? after hearing us, anyone have any more comment about our comments? Being informal?
Recording meetings, I watched this afternoon the discussion about the warrant articles at the 2023 town meeting, and I made notes about what the town's attorney said when he was asked about what the pros and cons are. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, the pros are access and accessibility, accountability, and transparency. He said the most notable con is liability exposure. He said towns have volunteer boards, and every once in a while, everyone's human, and they may say something that they wish they hadn't. He said the recordings are a public record. It's accessible to plaintiffs' attorneys if there's a case against this board. He said people will have to be more careful about what they say. He said sometimes under this practice, there's a temptation to have less specific and detailed minutes of the meetings. And he said that can be negative because it would impact accessibility to the meeting's business, in that detailed minutes, he said, are convenient because you can go to the minutes and find what you're looking for, and you don't have to watch the entire meeting. So his one recommendation was that if the select board then adopted this practice, that they don't relax their practices of having detailed meeting minutes. He said it's just more efficient. He suggested that they include a retention period. So the town would store the recordings for X amount of time. He said he doesn't make recommendations about policy. So he wasn't making a recommendation about what the town was going to do that night. He said if the town the town would have to decide whether they're committed to transparency to such a degree to assume any increased liability risk. Then the chair of the planning board, which was also required that night to record their meetings, the chair of the planning board asked specifically, what happens if, we have technical difficulties and we can't record a meeting? And the lawyer responded that they should go ahead and have the meeting. And he referenced requirements under the law that set up a deadline, especially for a planning board, and that they would create bigger problems for themselves if they canceled a meeting when they're on a tight schedule.
Great, thank you. Oh, more public comment.
I'll be quick. I just wanted to follow up on what Melanie was suggesting. This board is free, say over the next month, to draft and adopt their own policy. And even if that warrant article is presented at the school district meeting, if you have drafted and implemented a policy, I think you could say that, and the article would be moot, and I suspect the body would vote it down. But if you've got concerns, say, some of the ones you expressed about having equipment, you could create your own policy that takes into account all of your concerns, where, when the meeting's held in this room, it's fully recorded, and in other rooms, maybe it's recorded but not live streamed, because perhaps you don't have the equipment if you're in another building. So set up your policy that works with your positions and your equipment, and then you don't risk having this warrant article come in and impose something on you that you're going to have problems with. So that's just a suggestion, is make your own policy and adopt it now and basically jump ahead of the warrant article.
Great idea, honestly. It's a good idea. Anything else? All right, great, thank you, appreciate it. Moving along, Marcy, anything you want to add to your report?
I don't have anything to add except to add a little bit of emphasis to our mission statement committee work. We will be unveiling that at our March PD Day. So I'll give you a sneak preview ahead of time, but I'm looking forward to that.
Any questions for Marcy? Wayne?
Just one thing I handed out tonight, new cost per pupil figures that came from the state this afternoon. So just, we updated the table that we put in the budget book. We updated our graphs that you've done historically for a number of years, because I have been here for a number of years. So we updated those. Those are for you. I wanted to get those to you first. I brought copies, so if I don't distract people too much, I'll kind of hand those out to folks in the audience, and we'll bring those to the Budget Committee on Monday.
Dwayne, I see it's $18,395 presently.
Yes.
What, under the budget we are proposing, what will it be next year, do you know?
No, because this calculation is what the state calculation is. I probably should explain it, actually. So cost per pupil is something that the DOE has done for decades. And what it does is it tries to be a comparison calculation for all districts in the state. So it takes our reported end-of-the-year financial data that we're required to report through a form called the DOE 25. It reduces that figure by transportation, any tuition expenses, and capital costs, and then divides it by your average daily membership. So it's not based on a budget, it's based on your actual expenditures. So it lags a little bit because the last fiscal year that we just completed was 23-24. So this is 23-24 expenditure data, 23-24 enrollment data. So for us, it's always been a really good tool for us to look at how we compare statewide neighboring districts that score similar to us on assessments, or the state as a whole. I think most districts use it in some capacity to kind of look at how they do. So we've always used it. It's always been part of our budget hearing handout, our budget books. So it's a good tool for us.
How do we make it more clear to the community how low ours is? I'm looking at this, and there's ones in the 42,000.
Yeah.
There's numerous ones in the 30,000s, and we're 18.
Yeah, I think we try to get that out. I mean, maybe I should have a road show or something and go around, but
Yes,
I think I think when people look at the analytics of the meeting, I don't think when I speak they really listen. I think they watch the kids do poetry, as they should, and my time is when they probably zone out or fall asleep. So I think it's, we try to put that out there. It is a slide that we have at the annual meeting every year when we talk about budget. I think some communities, a lot of the communities that have really, really high cost per pupils, usually you can kind of point to their usually pretty small schools, but they also tend to trend towards being more affluent communities. I think Bow is an interesting place because there's another thing that came out today, which is a metric that we also use. I don't really share it because it's, I don't really know if it's a metric that people really care about, but it's equalized valuation per student. So the state does a calculation where they equalize all valuation, all property in the state of New Hampshire. So you have equalized valuation, and it's supposed to be universal throughout the state. The DOE will take that figure and will divide it by your average daily membership and create an equalized valuation per student. So the state figure is a little more than $2 million per student is the state average. Bow is about 1.4. But the flip side of that is, under almost any metric that looks at income, Bow ranks very high. So it's a high-earning, low-property community. And that can be difficult, in terms of taxes, in terms of things like that, because you don't have a lot of property. Some communities can raise a huge amount of money and really have very little tax impact. Bow isn't like that. I mean, Bow's not I wouldn't call it a property poor community, but it is a residential property community. And that's been like that, since the power plant started to be devalued. So, that's a metric too that we look at. And that's why one of the reasons, the way that the adequacy calculation is right now for adequacy grants, that's one of the reasons that Bow gets a $4.4 million adequacy grant. I mean, I think there are people that have the assumption that, Bow's this affluent community and they don't get a grant. No, we get a significant grant, a $4.4 million grant that offsets, it's a revenue to the district and offsets taxes.
Right.
So it's all fascinating stuff when you sit in my chair, but cost per pupil is one that we really try to show folks, because I think we want to show that by this metric, I think there is value to what the community's paying for schools based on what other districts are doing as well.
Right. Any other questions for Dwayne?
No, I think, your question of how can we put this out there more, and I know we share this information at the annual meeting, so maybe to do it in a more graphic way, right, to really highlight what a substantial, I think it's substantially different than people think, that we're spending all of this money, that it's just not happening. So I think it's a really important thing that we'll work on for that meeting.
We'll have Dwayne put some color in this slide.
Dwayne struggles with color, but we'll work on it.
How about animations?
All right, moving along. Jessica, anything to add to your report?
Sure. To kind of piggyback off of that, the New Hampshire Fiscal Policy Institute annual conference that I attended, that's in my report, was a really fascinating opportunity to hear a whole myriad of folks sitting around together. I looked around, I didn't see any familiar faces from education, but that might just because I'm a glutton for punishment. I was there with nonprofits, there were some legislative individuals there. It was really a cool opportunity. There were lay people there just interested in the state of affairs with the state budget. So the nonprofit explained the state budget, then there were breakout sessions for different areas of concern around the state. I went to the education breakout session, and they explained the adequacy formula, and in the room there were a lot of questions about where does that money go, where do those differentials for different, like free and reduced lunch and special education, and what about charter schools, who gets this money? So it was really cool to hear that discussion. I wasn't so much a glutton for punishment that I raised my hand and contributed to conversation, but it was really cool to hear, and an exciting opportunity to kind of break away from the special ed silo that can kind of exist for me at times and see what else is out there. So I just wanted to add that perspective to my report.
Nice. Excellent. Any questions? No? Owen?
The only thing that I would add is that we put all of our strategic plans and also the graphic that I shared with you folks a little bit ago, the snapshots of success, that's on the SAU website now, and Connor put a tab on there that it just says right on the SAU website, strategic plan. So you click on that, you'll see all the strategic plans for all the schools, as well as the SAU and the student services. But the snapshots of success also talk to what you were just speaking about, the cost per student, but also some other little graphics in there. So that could possibly be a good place to send folks so that they can see what the schools are doing. But other than that, unless you have any questions.
Nice. Any questions? We're cruising right along tonight. Thanks. Appreciate it. You're not going to be able to do this for long. I'm going to have to get formal pretty soon here. You had your chance.
Hey, why I'm here, and that is, I'm actually on my way out the door. I just want to say, this is me as a former legislator speaking, you guys have a really unusual situation. You have 2 of your 4 state representatives on the education committees in the House, and you have 1 on each of the 2 new education committees. I think Muriel's on the policy committee, and Dave is on the spending committee. And I don't doubt there's another community in the state that has that kind of access to what's going on in the legislature. So I'm just saying, take advantage of it, because you've got more expertise available to you than probably any other town in the state. So
Excellent.
that was it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Lori, anything to add to your report? You do.
I do. I have a really exciting news. We're ready for our last move. It's still standing. We are going to move on Friday, January 31st, for the last time. They'll give us full access to the building. I had a great meeting with our special education related services staff, and the room that they'll have to support children is probably threefold compared to what we had in the past. So we're pretty excited about that. DEW will probably be there with maybe 1 or 2 people for a couple weeks afterwards, and then we'll see them again in June for the summer work.
I just want to add one thing, and I went to their staff meeting this week, and for some reason it was lost on me, or maybe it hadn't been decided yet. I don't know where the new staff room would be. I don't know if you ever saw the old staff room. It was essentially an oversized closet that just crammed things in, not super inviting for staff to enter. Well, it's going to be one of the old classrooms. It's huge. There's daylight. Like, it's just a nice, really awesome space for staff to want to go instead of eating in their classrooms or a neighbor's classroom. I was super excited for them for that. So I can't wait for it to be set up.
We're excited for that for our paraprofessionals in particular, because that's really, their schedule is so different with coverage and where they go, that particularly it's hard for them to eat in a classroom because there's usually a class there. So we've had to be really creative these last 10 weeks as we've been going through this last section. So I'm really excited that they'll have a spot that they don't have to turn sideways while they're all going in and coming in and getting their lunch. So we're really excited. There's a point someone once said to me, they go, it really wasn't that bad. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's because it's this close. But we're really good. And it has been great, and we're truly grateful.
Nice. Any questions for Lori?
I do.
I do too.
I have, well, not so much questions, but observations. Both basketball related. So I just dropped my second grader off for basketball practice tonight at 5 before I came here. And the first thing I noticed is, wow, we got no gym doors.
Yes.
And there is no more sticker on one door that says, don't use this. It's broken. Don't even bother. Yeah. And as I was saying hi to the coach and coming out, every parent that came in, ooh, look at those doors. Ooh, look at those doors.
Yeah.
It's such a small thing, but everyone notices.
It's huge, and it's so much brighter. They just finished that at the end of the school today, and I was heading out for a meeting, and just there's artwork. There's a piece of art that we had done well before me through an artist in residence. It actually is more visible now because it's just so much lighter. And actually, I think 2 of those doors are still waiting for their lock. But
yes, that's right.
So, but they open, so that's really cool. So yeah,
This was a point of contention during some of our meetings. Like, why are we're investing all of this money, and then you leave the main office, and there are these doors that paint's peeling off of that don't work, that are terribly ugly, right? And that's the first thing people are going to see after this multi-million-dollar project. So we were able to get those in, and they came earlier than I thought. They were on Tuesday. They were installing them. They look fantastic.
Our kids are also so used to construction that when the supervisor said, he goes, "Do you mind if we do that during the school day?" I go, "Oh, that's nothing. Yeah, go right ahead." So it's been great for the kids to watch that.
The other thing I was thinking about is on Sunday we went for our first basketball game, and the buzzer is so unreasonably loud. I think 5 seconds before the quarter ends, all kids go like this because it's so loud.
When it gets down.
I've never heard it.
It is so loud.
All right,
I guess
Tracy, we're on that tomorrow, right? We're going to listen?
Somebody's gotta do
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. I will go in with Elliot, our tech assistant, and see what we can do about that. Because that's really funny. That's still the one room when we have all the kids together. Our mic only works so well. We have a new system in the cafeteria, so that's been great. But when we do whole school assemblies, it's I guess the one loud thing is the buzzer. We will take a look. Yeah.
So I have a couple of things. First thing, I'm a little worried about Tracy Ruby's hearing. Maybe we should get, wait. And another thing too, so if we're almost done, I would love to have the newest update concerning replacing the faucets in the old part of the building, the next stage of testing for the lead in the water, all of that.
So those are all replaced. Those are part of the last phase. So
They're all done?
They're replacing the rest of them. I think they're almost done. And then our plan was to do the next round of testing when they're done, when we were done. We thought that was going to be like March timeframe. It might be earlier than that, but it'll be around then when we do the next round. And we're going to do the whole building again.
I've been hearing the plumbing, it's ongoing.
Yeah, we're going to re-inventory as well because we added some bathrooms, took some stuff offline, so we're going to have to re-inventory and then redo it, which is fine. We had to do it once before, so we're going to do that.
Excellent, thank you so much. And Lori, nice to see you back.
Thank you, it's good to be back.
Adam?
Sure. I don't have anything I really want to add to my report, but I do have a different topic I want to talk a little bit about. I wanted to talk a little bit about SmartPass. It's been kind of making a little bit of a splash at the Memorial School. It's a change, and I think it's going to be a really positive change. It's an online digital hall pass system, which is going to help us to kind of know how many times a day kids are checking out of classes. It's not going to affect probably 90 to 95% of our kids, but it will affect a small subset if we can identify there's like patterns where you're checking out every single class for 5 to 10 minutes. Well, that's going to make a meaningful impact in your academic experience over time. But we also want to be careful with the use of that pass. We want to make sure we assure our parents, and I tried to do that with a memo yesterday, where if your student needs a break and they take a motor break, or there may be a biological need where you need an extra long time in the bathroom, there's going to be there's no pass police for that. Like that, we understand, we get that. But some of the other logistical things the pass system does that is very cool is it will allow you to do like keep apart lists. Like if you think back to when you were in school, there was always like groups of buddies who would meet in the bathroom at the same time. Well, 90% of the time that may not be a big deal because foolishness isn't necessarily going to happen. But we do have some combinations where now we can program the pass system so that those kids can't intersect at the bathroom. So that, we giggle and laugh a little bit, but it's going to make a meaningful difference because bathrooms, they're the unsupervised spot in a school. So things happen. So if you can just do a little bit of manipulation behind the scenes, you can avoid a lot of behavior and poor choices. So that, I think, will be a neat thing. The other thing it does is it queues up waits. So for instance, Jen Ottolini, our nurse, she'll sometimes get bombed in waves where there'll be a lot of kids coming, particularly like med time, when if she knows that's coming, we can set a queue for the health office. So we have the queue set at 4. So that's going to really help. With a queue of 4, she can manage her incoming med students and still keep the wait time fairly reasonable for the rest of the kids coming in for cuts, scrapes, sniffles, whatever, the myriad of things kids come in for. So I think it's going to be a really powerful tool, and we're just in the first stages of rolling it out, but I've heard some talk about it. I know it's going to cause a little bit of anxiety because it's different, and it does have a certain Big Brother feel to it because all of a sudden when kids are signing out and moving places. So I want to basically assure folks that that's not the intent. But part of the intent does tie back to our MTSSB structures, and this will be a data source in that we can track patterns of behavior. And if we can track someone who may be really engaging in school avoidance, it's not about gotcha necessarily. It could be about how do we get you some support for the school anxiety or whatever's driving you to seek these avoiding behaviors. So I think it just could be an important metric. Now I owe a thank you, and then I owe an apology. The next is the thank you. I want to, Martin, you may not know this or not, but I owe a big thank you to your wife. She sent me a terrific email earlier today, and I appreciate that. And I responded to it, and I didn't even realize that I had made an error in my response to her when I wrote it. It took Mr. Vos, so I owe Mr. Vos a thank you. So when she emailed me, I began to look into the data privacy pieces around it, and I felt really confident in my reply to her because this product is both FERPA and COPA compliant, and those are the two kind of twin pillars of data privacy that schools use, so I felt really good about that. But I didn't realize we also needed to have an agreement signed with a company, and that Chris let me know that, and that's called a DPA. So I've learned a little bit today, which is good. So we're actually going to put SmartPass, and this is where Joe and Matt will probably be frustrated with me because the teachers have liked SmartPass. We're kind of pushing to get it into place even quicker than maybe we were ready for it, which I appreciate. Like, that's good. I think that means there's a need out there for having SmartPass on the ground. But we're going to hit pause until Chris gets the DPA officially signed. And the reason for the DPA is that shifts the liability from the district to the, and you can correct me if I'm wrong in any of this, but from the district back to the company if there were ever a data breach, is my understanding, because it's a data privacy agreement. Is that correct, Chris? So we're excited about the product. It is a good product. It is in use in a lot of schools. It does have really good data privacy protection. It is both FERPA and COPA compliant, but we need to get the DPA online. And I have a letter set to go out to our parent community, but I just wanted to kind of come to you, let you know about it first, and then before I leave here tonight, I'm going to hit send, and it will go out to our families. So Chris, anything to add?
There's other districts out there who have DPAs with this vendor, so it's really just a formality. We just got to get that signature, and then we can move forward with it. So,
Chris, I'm going to scope creep on this conversation for a second, but I think the answer is no, but I saw in the news, I think last night, that there was a data breach of some public school, a massive one, like 30% of all public school kids in the country, but we don't have it was public something was the name of it.
Power School?
And we don't have that.
No.
Excellent.
Because we were all listening to that.
That's what I figured.
Waiting for the
Yeah, because I'd never heard of it, and I figured.
Oh, a bunch of districts in the state use it. It was in the midst of kind of things we considered, but a bunch of us had used it in previous districts and didn't consider it, so I'm glad we didn't.
Yeah. Any questions for Adam?
I don't have a question, but I have an opinion.
Let's hear it.
I just feel that if you're saying that it won't affect 95% of the student population, why are we putting a solution in place that addresses 100% of the population if it's really only 5% that we care for? And it just feels a little weird that a company now learns the bathroom habits of little Jimmy. It just rubs me the wrong way.
If I could issue a restatement of what, it won't negatively impact like 90 to 95% of our kids. I think it is a good data source for how we work with some of our tier 2, tier 3 kids who may have avoidance tendencies, because it's going to give us a lot more information on who is avoiding class. I don't think it's going to talk about it's not going to do anything around bathroom habits. Like, the computer's not going to the bathroom. There's nothing in the bathroom with this pass system. But what it is going to tell you is how many times is little Jimmy signing out of the class per day, and where are they going? So,
How does it know where is it going? Where'd you
Because you have to sign out, you have to enter a location. So you'd either be signing out to go to the boys' room in the 8th grade wing versus the nurse's office or the main office, or anywhere else library might wish to go, school counselor.
And is there a check? Like, if Jimmy says, I'm going to go to the 8th grade bathroom, and then he goes to the library, is there any check?
No, we wouldn't. No, there's no sign in. No. I mean, we're not tracking in that regard. We really aren't. It's tracking sign out. There's still an honor system component to it. If a kid signs out to go to the library and ends up in the locker room, the system doesn't prevent that. I mean, so it's not as invasive as what I think you're maybe envisioning.
Okay. Last but not least, what's the cost of this application?
I don't know off the top of my head. I think it was, I don't know. I don't want to speculate. How much? $3,000, you think? About $3,000? I don't know that for definite. I could get you an answer.
Thank you.
To follow up on Martin's question, so is that an issue? Like, what percentage, how often do you have Jimmy checks out to go to the 8th grade bathroom and you find him down in the library?
It is an issue with a small percentage of our population. It is an issue. It's kind of like behavior in most schools, where I would say you can, these are total round numbers, so don't take this as this gospel researched fact, but probably in most schools I've been a part of, somewhere between, let's pick the number 5, like 5% of your kids generate 80% of your discipline. It just, that's just what happens. So
if that happens and Jimmy's not where he's supposed to be, the next time Jimmy goes to check out and says he's going to the bathroom, I assume you guys don't just say, yeah, go for it, don't you? At that point,
the
lose all
hard thing
trust.
is there's no universal knowledge. So Lori will not know that Jimmy signed out in ELA when Jimmy then goes to science with Chris or social studies with Matt. So what this does is it eliminates that. Everybody's on the same platform. And I think that's always been the historical weak spot. And you can kind of think of that in any school USA. Like when I was working in a high school, I was the social studies guy. I could only imagine what Matt had done before he came to my class or not. I didn't know. It's in that absence of information. And I think what we would see right away is you're going to have some kids, and maybe it's a good thing for some. Maybe they really need the motor break. But we used SmartPass for about 3 days, and we noticed that one girl had already missed an hour and 15 minutes of class. So I think there's some power in that. And maybe, maybe not. And if we don't like it, if it feels too big brothery, well, you can always hit undo. I mean, it would have been an expensive lesson, but it would have been a lesson, But I do think there's going to be some power that could then play into things like our universal team and our tier 2, tier 3 teams. Like we're supposed to be making like data-driven decisions around student behavior, and this would be a kind of an important metric, I think, or another metric.
Yeah, I wanted to offer, Martin, what you were, it kind of piggybacks off of the MTSS piece and the comment you made about why use a certain tool with 100% of the people if you're only trying to target a small percentage. One of the things that's really important in terms of an equity component and making sure you're treating everyone equitably is making sure everyone understands the expectation before you start treating a certain population a little bit differently. So if you do need to implement a supportive measure for a small group of people, you want to make sure that you've at least taught the behavioral expectation and held everybody accountable to the same thing before you start treating one group, only holding one group accountable. So sometimes it can be helpful to institute something like this, even if you pull it away for the vast majority, maybe you still use it for a small majority over time because they still need it while the other group doesn't, but at least you taught everybody how to do it in the first place before you hold that smaller group accountable for their behavior, or use that data to determine that that small group of people have some kind of disability or disadvantage or they can't do it if you haven't tried to make sure everybody can do it. So there's just food for thought to consider. It might not be something you use all the time, but it could be something to just kind of get the ball rolling.
No, that makes sense. That explanation makes sense. One last question, and then I'll move on. Adam, if you don't mind me asking, what was the reaction from the community? I know my wife felt very strongly about this. Melanie here was thinking it's the best thing since sliced bread, as you were explaining it.
Okay, well, don't put words in my mouth, but I think it was the best thing since rolls.
It's been mixed. So I've had a couple of concerned emails, which I do understand from like parents of young women as they're trying to navigate those. I think, and that's real. I get that, and we try to reassure whether it's boys or girls. Everybody has a day where they made it a little longer in the restroom. There is no restroom police. Like it's going to be just fine. I don't want anyone stressed out about, geez, I exceeded the recommended limit for time. So we tried to address that. That was one set of concerns. So tried to take the anxiety out of it. I've had some that thought it was a great idea because they've had hallway concerns around just behaviors and kind of silliness that can occur. And then I've had one that was very concerned about the data, which made sense, So a little bit mixed. I haven't heard a lot. Like sometimes it's funny. It's kind of like when you run the analytics for the meeting itself. I think I've had about 5 responses I'm sure there's way more than 5 opinions, and I'm not looking for my email blocks to necessarily explode, but they've also been all over the map, from really good to I'm concerned about my son or daughter feeling anxious about thinking they only have 5 minutes and they better really run, because that's not the intent.
So, so one thing I'm going to say is you might have 5 comments, but that probably covered like probably 30 people, because all people like get together, and some people aren't comfortable reaching out to you, but their friend is, and then they talk to each other. So, I mean, it's just how it goes. I would really love if any of the teachers that work with this would give us kind of like how you find that this is working, what the benefits are, what the challenges are, just the boots on the ground type of thing.
All right, Matt Cassani, 7th grade social studies and resident boys bathroom monitor for 7th grade hallway. So that is my secondary job. If we sat here and calculated the time I've lost to teaching to doing that job over the last 2.5 years I've been here, it would outweigh $3,000 by a good amount. And we've had a lot of issues in that bathroom in particular. So I would say just from that point of view, the last couple of days, we typically don't have like regular issues, but the gatherings have been much less. Kids know that we know they're going there, so there's no hiding, there's no not signing out on the sheet, there's no sneaking out. Does it happen occasionally? Of course it does, but it's been a lot less and insignificant. So from that point of view, at least in my end, I've liked it a lot. I've been able to be in front of my classroom. I don't have to worry about any gatherings. Again, I can keep a good eye on it, but sometimes 3, 4, 5 people are in there, and all of a sudden I'm hearing something going on. I got to go, sorry, class, 1 second, go in there and deal with it. And since it's only been a few days that I've been using it, since the school has, but I know other teachers used it earlier, and I've already seen a significant drop in that regard, because typically it was like once or twice a day. It's been, maybe once the last 3 days. So that's been good. From like a user point of view, I would say it's something to get used to. Kids' Chromebooks, it's middle school, things are not on, things are not working. Sometimes it takes me more effort to like utilize it properly, but I think at the end of the day, I've spent more time in my classroom because of it, just regardless of those issues. So I think that's probably the best. I'm probably one of the best people to give you that, because again, part of my job is to stop those issues from happening when possible, but overall, I think it's been good, and kids know the expectation. And, again, for a majority of kids, there's trust there already. I've never asked anyone, why they need to go anywhere, any of that, and it's stayed that way. So, again, as people have been saying, it's less intrusive than we think, and I think as we kind of narrow everything down and get used to it, it'll be better and more efficient, and we'll be able to utilize it way more effectively.
Tracy Berube, 9 Hope Lane in Bow. I am the parent of a 7th grade daughter. My husband is one of the 5 people who reached out to Adam. He's also one of the 6 that are watching this right now. And I think what the problem for us was in the beginning was that the information came home from an anxious 13-year-old girl, and we knew nothing about it. We sat on it and talked about it for a couple of days. And I just think really once my husband was able to talk to Adam, once the email came out and explained everything, it makes perfect sense. And to us, we're ready to move forward, but not knowing, not hearing anything except for what the 13-year-old girl comes home saying was a little bit difficult at first.
So maybe, Adam, we could ask before doing things like that, could we do the parent part first?
Yes, I definitely should have. There's no question about it. And Tracy's comments are spot on.
Sure.
One more month?
We have a little bit more time before we get formal.
So I unfortunately, that's the longest thing I have here. A lot of topics have already been covered, but one of the things that struck me a little funny about Adam's email and update, which I don't like any criticizing of Adam. I love everything I get from Adam. I really do. I have nothing but excellent things to say, except that it said it was an update about SmartPass in the notice. And I was like, gosh, I don't believe I ever got any info about this before. It was the first I'd heard in a similar situation to Tracy of my daughter coming home and indicating that there's a 5-minute limit on going to the bathroom. 3 minutes for boys, 5 minutes for girls. And that she had a friend. This is coming from a 13-year-old, right? So take a grain of salt. But that there was someone that was a minute late and received a recess detention for being a minute late. I don't know if that actually happened or if this person received a recess detention for a different reason. But that was the chatter among the kids. And then I got the update from Adam a day or two later and indicated that there was much larger times. I'd already heard about this from my wife, who'd been seeing some chatter on social media in different school districts right at that same time. And I go, oh, that's nothing we have at the school. And she goes, oh, yeah, I was in other school districts. Have you heard anything about it? And I was like, no. And then, boom, my daughter literally comes home and tells me about it. And I didn't know what to say. So I guess I kind of wrote a little bit of some notes down about it. Some of it's been covered, so I apologize, but I just need to kind of get it out. We didn't love that there wasn't notice about it. It seemed to, I already mentioned the student being penalized for being a minute late, supposedly. And the 3 and 5 minutes, I was like, there's no way that's real. I was like, there's no way that's real. Nobody can go to the bathroom in 3 minutes. Certainly can't do a number 2 in 3 minutes. And what I was told is there wasn't like an indication of I have to pee or I have to poop, right? So anyway, it seemed a little excessive. And I didn't like that, and I don't like the Big Brother aspect of it. And so, let's see, I've been through that. When we received the email from Adam a day or two later in regards to this new program, it lays things out a lot better, increased times, or what is perceived as increased times for male, female. And while I recognize the challenges of knowing where kids are in a building and the positives that Adam just laid out for us too about workflow and where kids are and coming into the nurse's office, I recognize that, and the teachers not having to monitor quite as closely what's happening in the bathrooms. I very much appreciate that. I really do. I'm not attempting to belittle any of that. But while I recognize the challenge of knowing where kids are in a building, I'm not sure additional tracking and monitoring of students' daily lives is a positive thing. I believe kids need an opportunity to make mistakes and navigate consequences. Tracking their every move separates them from this ability and to reason out what is appropriate and puts kids who do not have these hallway issues on an unfairly level playing field with the kids who do need these additional consequences imposed to help them make better decisions. This does not solve the issue of kids ripping vapes in the bathroom and penalizes and monitors the kids that weren't doing that anyway. I just don't think that we need to monitor our kids further. I do not like tracking apps in particular. I'm not a fan of tracking apps. I don't like that aspect of it. I recognize I'm carrying a tracking device with me. Okay, everyone, I do recognize that. But I don't monitor my children where they are. I just think that you have to be able to independently make some decisions on your own. And I don't think that an additional monitoring of kids that are already under a lot of scrutiny and pressure of every day and notifications and filling out forms, I don't believe that additional time on that is beneficial to them. I think it is hurtful to their decision-making abilities. Those are my comments on it.
So if I could say, so Adam, I just want to ask this. So Beth Corkum, you do a lot with the data, right? And so say if this information that you want, some of it you want to get, you see that there's one student that keeps going outside, right? And they keep getting out of class. And then you kind of discover that maybe this student has some anxiety or there's something going on, right? And that's valuable data. That's information that's going to make it so that you can help this student and then maybe give them the tools to deal with this and then spend more time in the classroom, if I'm understanding. However, wouldn't it backfire if there's any negative consequences for taking too much time? So, and I'm just asking, and that might not even be the case at all, Adam. I just want to make sure, like, let's kind of address that.
I just want to mention that this app is in an effort to streamline what we do. So when a student signs out of a classroom, they're signing out of a classroom, right? So now this is changing that to it's on a Chromebook. We need to monitor where students are in the building, regardless of whether it's on an app or whether it's done through paper. So we're tracking time the best that we can in a manual way now. So this is a tool for us to use to be able to do that in a more efficient way.
That's exactly what I was just going to say. So actually at the high school in 2022, the Universal team felt that time out of class was a challenge and the teachers were feeling I apologize for my voice, frustrated by that. So we did a 2-week data trial at that period of time. This was 2 years ago. And we collected over 4,000 data points over a 2-week period, and I manually crunched that. That was not a fun use, or I don't think a very valuable use of my time to crunch high school handwriting to where they went and how long they went there. However, we did find out some very valuable data that 4,000 data points resulted in 4.5 minutes out of class for the average high school student. We were then able to communicate that to all of the teachers and all of the high school students. So therefore, we had a baseline, right? So then when we're talking about students at tier 2, 3, if a teacher says, oh, I feel like this student is missing excessive amount of class time, well, what is that time? Is it 6 minutes? Is it 20 minutes? We now know that the baseline is 4.5, right? So I have looked at the data from the 3 or 4 days that the middle school has used this. So far, the girls have been going to the bathroom for 2.5 minutes, and the boys have been in the bathroom for 3.8 minutes, and that was 300 data points, right, of what has just been crunched. But I popped up on a screen and I saw that. I did not see any individual kid. You can get that. We did find, this one human has left class 18 times. That's probably a human we want to have a conversation with about what's going on with them. But it's definitely not looking at the, minutia of every single kid.
And is there any negative consequences for being out?
No. It's pure awareness, pure information. So if that kid, we'll have a tier 2, 3 meeting tomorrow and have a conversation.
If there has been any consequences, I'm unaware of it. That would have been done at a team level. I have not even talked to a kid about length of a pass or being out of class since we've had Smart Pass. But I'm not disputing what the kids are saying. I mean, it could have happened. It could have been with a specific teacher, or like Judd said, it could have potentially been for some other reason and it just became scuttlebutt. There shouldn't be. That's what I can say, is that we shouldn't be penalizing kids unless it becomes a chronic or excessive issue like that. I mean, and those are the kids you'd want to work with based on the data. But it shouldn't be the overwhelming majority of our kids.
But one could argue that even if a student is going out of the classroom excessively, that there could be something underneath that, and not necessarily, negative behavior is still communication, right?
It could be anxiety producing it. It could be any number of, I agree. But it's a flag. What it becomes is a data point. It becomes a flag.
Okay, great.
Yep. And Judd, thank you for your comments. I appreciate it, and we definitely could have rolled it out a lot better.
No, I understood. Thank you, Adam. I do have some follow-up comments, if I may, and it's related. I have another kid that has been in his time a chronic abuser of going to the bathroom, and the way that it was solved is the teacher reached out to us. and we addressed it together with them. So I would hope that any kid that's being identified, if they're already signing out, if they have to sign up, I assumed there was already a system in place for making sure that you can't just walk out of class, right? So if there's already a system in place, if that has become a chronic issue, I would hope that a teacher would very simple message to the parents that says, we've been noticing this and we need your help addressing it. And I'd be sad to hear if that doesn't get the kind of benefit that you need from the family. But in our case, it was a consistent issue for a couple of grades that this particular son of mine would try to get out of schoolwork at just really inappropriate times. We had to establish this baseline with him for 3 grades in a row. And we've, I believe, solved that problem. But we are going to have to monitor it very closely when he comes to the middle school. It is, I think it is more about communication and less about data. I think that's how this needs to be perceived. Communicate with your parents. I'm sure you do. Sorry. I know you communicate with parents. I apologize. I don't mean to imply that. But they already deal with a lot of data tracking in their life, and I don't think this is good use. But I already said that. Thank you.
Any other comments on this subject or any other? I have one that, in this lengthy discussion, my mind may have wandered. And do you remember you guys did a survey, Matt and Adam, related to athletic fees at the school? And my recollection was the result of that was sort of 50-50, right? Was it kind of 50% were like, yeah, sure, and 50% like, no, but there was, and it was a small percentage on the two outlier, like 10% or less of like, absolutely not, 10% like, of course. Is that right? I mean, we need to talk about more than that, but that was my recollection. It was in that ballpark. Yeah. Okay. Just curious.
I can look it up for you. I can't remember. I mean, I know I shared the data in that moment, but I'll have it in my computer if you give me a couple seconds. Maybe if Matt starts, and I'll find that survey, and I'll be able to give you the actual numbers.
That's fine.
Adam, can you also get us the comments from the parents? Because you're at a spot where they could write comments, right?
Sure. I mean, I'll have them all. It'll all be in the same survey.
Can we compile those comments and share them out with the board after?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so don't hold off then, Adam, till whenever. And it seems like maybe this subject we just talked about, let's revisit it in like May, after you have a couple months of data, and see if anyone feels as passionate as they do presently about it in a couple months.
I'm going to be hitting pause anyway on SmartPass while we get the DPA. Hearing that there are people that are pretty passionate on both sides. Sometimes you shoot and you miss, but you shoot with good intentions, right? You always take that shot at the hoop intending to hit. Sometimes you throw an air ball. I think it might make sense, given the perspectives I've heard, if I were to maybe survey that. Because if 80% of our families come back and say, geez, we do not want our children's data tracked, we would rather have it be the paper and pencil thing. I think a lot of our teachers, and administratively, we like it because it gives us a lot of information, and it's easy, and it's tied together so that you can see what's going on in English and then in science and then in history. And paper doesn't do that. Like, you don't see those trends. But I also get it from the parents' point of view. Like, I heard what you said, and it makes sense. Maybe we hit pause. While we hit pause, we develop a survey and we push that out to families. And then if families weigh in and they say overwhelmingly, this isn't something we want, well, then we just learned an expensive lesson. But that's okay. I mean, sometimes you shoot and you miss.
How long is it going to take to get that, Chris?
It varies per vendor. I couldn't put like a specific time frame on it. It could be a week, it could be 2-3 weeks.
Okay.
Does that seem like a kind of maybe, just based on what I'm hearing, that might be the reasonable next step?
Yeah, I guess the three of us have kind of been quiet because we don't really have any middle schoolers, and it's not an issue that we've really been focused on, but back to Judd's point, I think as long as you communicate your survey appropriately, the problem with surveys is you got to make sure how you communicate the questions is properly answered. And as I sit here, not really involved, it sounds to me like you already track it. This just gives you a better ability to track it even better. So it doesn't strike me as problematic at all as I understand it, but I don't have really anything to do with it, so.
And Beth, you did say that you tracked the paper stuff, right? So it took like a long time for you to write it down to see a pattern. But that can be still tracked by paper, but it would just be a lot of time that we would be paying people to do that. So probably not, okay.
Yeah, I guess I've just been quiet because we're doing it anyway on paper. Like, there's a lot of things we used to do on paper, and now we do with the computer because it's a lot easier. So that's why and you say communication with teachers, but if a teacher notices a kid is missing English like every other day, but is like, oh, maybe I should reach out, I don't know if it's a problem, but then they're also missing all their other classes every day, but you don't necessarily see that. Sometimes data is a good thing too, but I also don't have a middle school kid, or a kid that went to the bathroom all the time or left class. I don't think. Maybe he did, I guess. But.
I have 3 middle school kids, and I'm going to say that one of them, you might see her name come up. So, and that's why I thought this is great. So, but, I'm also a teacher that used to have the paper and have to go through that too, so, yeah.
Adam, I believe you said, I don't have anything to add to my report. But an hour later.
That wasn't in my report, in fairness.
All right.
Yeah. Here
I
you are,
assume
Matt.
we're all set with Adam.
Sorry about that, everyone.
Matt, you have anything to add to your report?
Yes, I do. In answer to your question, Bryce, at the high school, it was 50% supported the athletic fee and 44 did not. And I actually have Adam's survey results here if you want those.
Sure.
At the middle school, they had a little bit more of a robust turnout. 47% said yes, they supported a fee, and 43% said no.
Excellent.
So some of our stuff, just to add on a couple things. Yesterday we had Ty Gagne came and he spoke at our school meeting. He's an author and outdoorsman, and I think he gave a really powerful message about the importance of looking after others. He gave a really powerful story, and I think it resonated with everybody in our school community, so it was really well received, I think. On the 12th of February, Maureen Ariel. Maureen's one of our business teachers. She does a ton of work to set up internships and opportunities for our students to go to different career opportunities. She's taken kids to NHTI. She's taken kids to the Police Standards Academy. So lots of really cool things. On the 12th, we're hosting a career fair here at Bow High School. Students will have the opportunity to sign up to see a number of different speakers come in, everything ranging from people in the trades, electricians, lawyers, doctors. So it's a really, really cool opportunity, and Maureen's doing a lot there. Our first semester of the school year ends next Friday. So our kids are really busy finishing up some of their semester courses. This is also a time of the year where especially our academic support teachers are really doing a lot of work to provide our students with support. So Jess DeRocher, Tim Welsh, Devin Calkins, Melissa Cook, our case managers, they do a great job every day, but especially this time of the year. And then Kathy Knowles in our Learning Lab, she's another hugely valuable resource for our kids, does a lot to support them. And then the last couple things, if you're looking for something fun to do and want to come chaperone a high school dance on February 8th. February 8th is our Valentine's Day dance. And then just lastly, I had the opportunity to come on Saturday, this past Saturday, to the VEX robotics competition. And I can't say enough about everything that Pam Cafaso and Connor Parsick did to have our kids prepared. We had 4 different teams participating. There were over 40 teams from around New Hampshire and Vermont. And just to see just how smooth everything went, the production, just huge kudos to Pam and Connor for everything they did.
Nice. Any questions for Matt?
I do have one question. Just in your report, you mentioned that one of the 2026, 2027 changes might be going from 2.5 to 5 credits for social studies. How many do kids, like an average high school kid, get now in Bo's curriculum? I mean, I know there's electives, but basically, how many do most kids get now?
Yeah, that's a good question. So social studies has a number of electives. So I would say the average Bow High School student will have somewhere between 3.5 and 4 credits.
So it's definitely an increase. There'll be like more of a push towards that if they need 5.
Oh,
I
yeah.
wasn't sure if their kids were already getting 5. I was like trying to calculate in my head.
So, no.
Okay.
No, so I've been doing a lot of work trying to put together what the new changes are going to entail, and there are some pretty significant changes that have been proposed, and it will change what our students are able to sign up to take. Because if you go from 2.5, obviously if you go from 2.5 credits to 5 credits, something's got to give, right? And so that's something that's got to give is going to, if nothing changes, that's going to be electives. So there are some conversations that we're going to have as a school, as a community, as far as how do we want to
Right,
go
like
forward.
less focus on science electives. I
Right.
was thinking math electives.
So I'm hoping that Matt can come and we can outline that for the board and the community. That would be something that really important for the community to see, that kind of what's being forced on us. For next month, sorry, I didn't say that.
So, Matt, your survey about the fees, did you also have an area for comments?
Yes.
Can we see those as well?
Yeah, I can absolutely forward that to you. We only had 32 respondents on our survey, but I'd be happy to share everything.
Excellent, thank you.
Anything else for Matt? No? All right, moving on. Chris, anything to add to your report?
Yeah, I just want to summarize my report here. It's kind of a mid-year progress report for IT. I took a look at some of the analytics in our ticketing system for the first 6 months of this year and compared it to last year's first 6 months. And, you know, I kind of instinctively knew that we, in IT in particular, took on an increased workload based off of the various competing projects and just keeping the lights on with our network and some of our systems. So in looking at that data, you know, just for example, in September, we had 691 tickets submitted. That's a large amount of tickets for one particular month. Most of those were Alma-related tickets. So that represents a 75% increase in the amount of tickets compared to last year's ticket submissions. In October, we saw a 49% increase. In November, 24% increase, so it was starting to trend down. And then December, it bumped back up to 39%.
And Chris, a ticket is, use Matt for example. Matt somehow, his computer doesn't start that day or something. So that would be an example of a ticket, or, I mean, that's how it is in my office. I'm sure, Martin,
Yeah.
you're similar.
Yeah, it's the main way that folks get service from IT. So that's the main pathway for that. So if we're looking at from like July 1st to now, we have handled 1,418 tickets, which in the lifespan, the 2-year lifespan of the actual ticketing system, represents 34% of all tickets submitted within that short 6-month time frame. So that's pretty impressive. We have a great IT team here, very smart, motivated. We work well together, and they've handled this workload very well, and I'm personally impressed by it. So anyway, that's all I have.
They're great. I will tell you, the staff is indebted to the IT staff. And
It definitely feels that way from where we're sitting, for sure. It's great. Although, how many of those did you push reboot? Really? You've did no laugh on that?
No, we always do root cause analysis and solve the underpinnings of the problem, so we don't reboot things. No, we probably do.
So I do have a question, Chris. Like, do you have any data about how, like, do we have, like, computers that are failing? Or what are the issues, like, the main issues that you've been facing on the top, like, the top problems? Are you tracking that as well?
Yeah, we definitely have that data, and it's something that we could get into and get more granular with those reports. But yeah, I mean, all the ticketing system helps us track trends so that we're not constantly putting out the same fires. If we identify trends, then we try to dig into the problem to identify root cause and permanently fix issues.
So what are the main, like, 2 issues?
I don't have that information right now, but we could definitely dig into that, yeah.
Just curious, because that just seemed like a lot, so.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely been a lot of Alma tickets, but yeah, we could certainly dig into that. Yeah.
Also, I have one other question. You said last month that you were going to publish a document on Alma to help
Yes.
parents.
Yes.
And did that take place?
Yes, it has.
Excellent, thank you.
You're welcome.
Beth, anything to add to your report?
Yes, I just wanted to explain the blue buckets in front of you. So January is School Board Appreciation Month. So
Really?
Yes. You didn't know about this, Bryce? Well, I'll tell you why we now know about this. So in front of you is a school board member survival kit. There is a little "You are a superhero" note card, and on the back it explains the rationale for the items in the bucket. There's a little bag that has things like an eraser, because we make mistakes, and super glue, because you hold us all together, a stress pencil for you to fidget with while you're in these meetings. So thank you for the work that you do, and we hope you appreciate that. With that note, I put size medium and large t-shirts in all of the bins. I have a big bag over here with a variety of other sizes. So please, before the meeting's over, swap out and take what you will wear, and appreciate that. So within my role last year, I started to recognize employee appreciation as employee well-being. The PTOs have always done a fabulous job going above and beyond for Teacher Appreciation Week in the spring. It kind of came from being a school counselor in my past life. I never knew if I was allowed or supposed to participate in teacher appreciation as a school counselor. So I always knew that School Counselor Appreciation Week was something. So over the past year, I've created documentation of all of the appreciation opportunities, including custodial staff and bus drivers and paraeducators and special educators and admin assistants and all of those things. So I have tried to do a small token of appreciation for all of those people. Oh, my phone, my watch is
maybe it's her
talking
phone.
to me. Wow, I was like, where is that coming from? And then I was like, oh, it's me. I got an Apple Watch for Christmas. Don't know how to use it yet.
Hey, I'm right there with you.
Okay, cool. It was talking, sorry. And we wanted to make sure that you all were included in that. So thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's great.
We have one for Matthew and for Trevor as well.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Somehow my vodka's missing. I don't understand. Not enough, Judd, not enough. Any questions for Beth? No? Mike Desselt's left us a report. He's not here, but any questions to the administration? I would say he has identified a pretty significant moment, though. Bow football, as long as I know, has had the same coaches, so it's a big, the head coach certainly, and in football, if people don't know, the coordinators are extremely active, if not more active than the head coach, and so those coordinators have been here long before my kids, so
when I first came to Bow, Brian O'Connell said how lucky we were to have the coaching staff that we did with football, and especially Paul Cohen, the role that he played. So they've done an amazing job, and those students, beyond the success on the field, have really benefited from the mentorship of the men in that program.
Yep, definitely.
So I don't know much about football, but is it normal for like them all to leave together? Are they like a package thing or?
Yes.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Really?
Do we have public comment or something? What do we have next? Okay. Manifest, oh, you have one.
Are we good? I can do manifest and vouchers. I'll make a motion to approve the manifest for the period ending November 30th, 2024, in the amount of $3,323,205.57.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Moving on. Policy consideration, admission of staff members' children to attend.
So at our last meeting, we talked about this, and I indicated that I'd reach out to the area superintendents or my region and see what if they had a policy and what it looked like, and I summarized that for you in the document there. It's kind of all over the map. Not everyone has them, a lot do, and they span, again, the gamut as far as the percentage of tuition, how many they accept. There's definitely parameters on them. I included Sunappee's policy because I thought it was pretty comprehensive. Some of them, no, I shouldn't say some, probably half of them, it's not a policy, it's just part of their practice, or it's connected to the collective bargaining agreement. I don't know that any action is needed other than we probably should decide if we want to consider a policy.
I think I would definitely like to consider it. It was, you're right, like all the other school districts, it was all over the map. And when I read through them, I thought that would be very challenging for our staff, as parents, to say like, they were like, some of the schools said, if there's room, or that there was a cap. And I kind of didn't love that idea because I felt that was going to be then more competitive between the staff members, and there might be resentment, like if your kid got in and my kid didn't, or I kind of feel, that I wouldn't be okay with that, I think. But I think it would be a good thing to discuss.
One of the things that we haven't done is, I mentioned early on that I'd heard from some staff members. I don't have a real sense of how many we would even consider it. And I mean, that could be a next step, is for me to reach out to staff and to find out that this is not a definite, it's not something that's set in stone, but it's something that we're kind of mulling around.
I definitely think it would be worth it. I personally think it would be nice to offer some level of tuition discount, whatever that may be, for employees to have it. And also, it did come up at negotiations a little bit, and we said we would talk about it as a separate policy. We didn't want it in the contract.
Right.
And so I do think we should probably see what the interest is like, and maybe figure out if it is something we want to do and what we want to provide.
I think, right, once we maybe have some information from staff, it would drive the conversation maybe a little bit better. I was actually surprised to see how many schools do offer something. There are some responses that came in after I submitted the packet where they were in the midst of working on things. I would say that was probably 3 other school districts. They don't have anything right now, but they're considering it.
One thing I wanted to ask though, Marcy, how does it work? And maybe Jess, you would know this as well. So if one of our staff, they have a child that is high needs, right? How would that work? Or if we have a staff member whose child has behavioral, so different needs that might arise. How would we handle that? How does
So
that
if you
work
look at the-
financially, too?
Yep, if you look at the Sunapee policy, it's outlined in there.
Yeah.
If the board adopts a policy and says, as an example, you cap it at 5 students, you can't base your determination on whether they have special education needs or not. And then we would need to work with that sending school district to maintain that they are willing to be the LEA, which means they would be responsible for those costs.
Okay, that's what I thought it said, but I wanted to make sure that I was understanding that.
I'm not sure how I feel about this just yet. I can already see a certain portion of the population saying, okay, here's a Bow teacher that lives in Chichester or whatever, Loudon, and pays half of the property tax that we pay, but gets to send their kid here. So I want to be cognizant of that fact. And on the other hand, you can say, well, if we are a really great district in the area and we want to attract the greatest talent in the area in terms of teachers, that is definitely a little bone we can throw them.
That's
I agree with you. Yeah, I think there's lots of things to consider.
Yeah, let's come back after, again, whenever you're ready. Whenever you come back with a little more information, but there's definitely a lot of pros and cons.
Sure.
For sure. Excellent. BESS and BE contracts, that's in the non-public section, so we're back to public comment. If anyone has any public comments again.
I didn't expect to be standing up 3 times, sorry. Just a couple of comments. One comment, I think, I noticed Bryce has a nice new haircut. I do not, so I'm just wearing some of Bryce's hair right now, I think.
I'm jealous, believe me.
Robin and I have noticed a little bit of, it hasn't really been an issue lately dropping kids off, I don't think, but I haven't been doing it as much as Robin has. So she's noticed that we don't have officer shooter there, generally speaking. Excuse me, I'm referring to dropping off at BES BMS. And might it be beneficial, or perhaps she's off doing other parts of her job, but it'd be beneficial to have her there with her lights on, just reminding people to slow down on a more regular basis, or potentially even directing traffic to save everyone, our fine principals and other administrative staff that we don't want to be run over. Not that I want a police officer to be run over either, just to be clear. But anyway, it's just something to be considered, perhaps, of maybe getting our principals out of the parking lot unless they like that part of their job. So. Yeah, anyway, just something we've been noticing. I did, in fact, also have a note in here about the clock in the BES gym, as Martin brought up. And then I guess 2 other just kudo things that I've noticed over this period of time. Miss Kephart, Miss K, at BES, she did what was the festive showcase. I got to watch that on video because it was sent out through Alma, and it was incredible. Her ability to get children, mass quantities of children, to participate and do things together and pay attention and enjoy and engage with what she's doing. Kids that I would not have pegged for engagement in this were clapping their hands and singing and doing the thing and having a good time doing it. It was awesome. Anyway, I just really, really enjoy her a lot, and just amazing to have her. The other thing I've noticed is to add to Mr. Fisk's report a little bit, and the career exploration opportunities that the school is offering. It makes me jealous sometimes, to be real honest. I really want to go to the bioengineered thing that just came out today. That looked really, really cool. And also any opportunities to partner with NHTI. It's my alma mater. I love NHTI. They have a great program at a modest price, and teachers, when I was there 20 years ago, that really engaged with their students and cared. So anyway, I like all those things. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to voice it.
You need a microphone.
Just because it's going to be in my newsletter tomorrow. Oops, I'm going to stand, that's easier. One thing I've noticed since we've come back is the January sleeping in late of the car riders is in full force. And we really noticed that this week because it's a tad cold out there. But the other thing I've noticed, and there was a day I went on to see if Serena, Officer Shooter, was available. And she was busy with something else, but made her way over. Wednesday and Thursday, I think your before school activities at the middle school and our drop off when people are late was, yeah, there's a word for that. So it really wasn't good, and our cars were having trouble getting back out onto Bow Center Road. So we will address that, because actually when we're standing out there at 7:35 and 7:40, very few cars. All buses are in by 7:45 at the latest. So 400 kids have made it upstairs, because I've been inside this time too, just because due to coming back, putting boots on is hard after hip replacement. They're up, and kids are just waiting. So if we had marked everyone tardy this week, most days we would have had 60 tardy kids. But that wouldn't be expedient. So just keeping that in mind too. Love being out there, except for in January when it's wind chill. But just coming into would be helpful. But I do think those days where, and a lot of parents are trying to meld dropping off their middle school child for their preschool, you're right, their before school activity and our start time. So, Adam and I may start to talk about what our calendars and times start like. But they're from 7:50 to about 8:07 this week and this morning. It's a lot out there. Yeah.
We've been lucky to not have a lot of snow yet.
Mm-hmm.
But in years past, we get a reduction in
Yeah.
rain sashes.
Yeah. I have enjoyed not being out there in the after-school part, because that's also when the buses come in. So I'm pretty happy there hasn't been snow yet, too. But you're right, if winter comes back, that's going to be huge for us. Thanks.
Excellent. We're going to move on to the board committee and delegate reports, but typically the administration leaves if they are so inclined. Feel free. I think we'll be pretty quick through here, though. But anyway, we'll keep moving on. Feel free to leave. It's fine. Policy, nothing new to report other than it sounds like we might be looking at putting together a new policy, but.
How are we doing as far as going through the stuff that needs to be redone?
We are in
Oh,
a
I'm
good
sorry.
spot, and I anticipate that we'll have a couple coming in February.
Okay.
Negotiations, no need to comment since we're going to have to go into non-public to talk about that. Budget, Martin, anything to add to Marcy's summary of the last meeting?
Nah, we're taking it along. I mean, we're just one meeting in. Dwayne did a great job presenting everything, so.
I heard there was more people there than usual.
We did have an audience. We, 8, 9 people? Something like
12.
that?
About 12.
I think 10, 12, yeah.
Less people for the town side, but the town is also down 3%, so.
Right. Okay, cool. Thank you.
And were the 9 people there like together or just a random, it just so happened 9 people went to a meeting that normally no one goes to?
I think they're spiritually connected.
Okay. All right. I know what you
Did
mean.
you feel that?
Town CIP and district CIP, nothing new to report. Wellness,
Nothing new to.
future ready schools.
Nothing to report.
Wow. Transportation, Dwayne, anything new? NHSBA, Angela, nothing. Wow, we're cruising. Athletic improvements and funding, nothing. Booster Club.
Just wanted to add that Bo hosted the basketball tournaments this year, the NHTI basketball tournament, so the Boosters was able to sell concessions and make some good money there, and sold a ton of hot dogs and no pizza. So we're thinking we're going to bring some hot dogs to basketball instead of pizza. So there may be some food options now.
Wow.
But that was a good benefit for us.
Nice. Any questions for Angela?
Just looping back to transportation, I did hear a rumor that we have had some new hires. We are like doing really well in that department.
Oh, don't jinx it.
Knock on wood. Did I jinx it?
Doing, yeah.
Good.
Yep, that's what I'm just gonna leave it at.
Leave it at that. I'm excited about that, though. That's great.
It's, yeah, it's been great.
Nice.
Starting in the cold. It's really good.
Oh, that's good. Even the oldest of the buses?
One's in the shop.
Okay, well, that's fine. The other one, though, starts in the cold. Well, that too.
Any additional public comment? I assume not. Any bottom lines for Marcy? No? All right, then according to RSA 91-A:311, open input, parent C, close parent, do we have a motion to go into a non-public setting?
I'll make that motion.
Melanie makes such a motion.
I'll second it.
Second by Jenna. Hearing no discussion. Melanie?
Roll call, yeah.
Martin?
Aye.
Bryce, aye. Jenna?
Aye.
Angela?
Aye.
Ayes have it. We'll go into a non-public session now.
Right.